Yeah, so I'm back with another Winhance Devlog, and this is Winhance Devlog number 8, if I can remember correctly. But basically, since the last devlog that I've posted, there has been a new release to Winhance, and these are the changes that were made. So in the previous devlog, I was working on this, where I was improving the app installation status detection accuracy by removing the registry-based detection and then the fuzzy matching-based logic. And I started relying on the WinGet export command to determine the installation status, and I also added diagnostic logging for easier troubleshooting. Part of that was that we added portable app handling in the external apps and fixed the installation detection for those portable apps. Now, in the last devlog, I also said that I was going to add some status indicators to these zip package, or that I was thinking of doing that, but I ended up not doing that because I was able to detect whether the app is installed via WinGet or whether it's not installed. And what I also added was start menu shortcuts for those apps. So if I go on the virtual machine here, you'll see that I installed those two packages, portable packages, Shutup 10, and then the Snappy Driver Installer Origin. The folder gets created in the start menu, and then you have access to all of the executable files that are available for that specific app, and then you can launch it. So instead of taking users to the installation folder of where those files are saved, it's got a start menu entry now, and if you still want to get to the folder, you can just right click on the item, open the file location, which will take you to the start menu folder, and from here you can do another right click and click on open file location, and you'll then have the full path in the title bar up here for where the files are actually saved, where this portable app is saved by WinGet. So it didn't work like that in Winhance release number 16. There was an issue with the shortcut creation for the portable apps, but I already fixed it in the development branch, and it'll be present in the next update. Now, part of this update was also to improve the edge removal and OneDrive removal script accuracy and cleanup. And then I also added script version numbers to those scripts and have Winhance auto update those scripts if they're out of date. So the reason I did this was there was a bug where OneDrive and Edge kept showing up as installed in Windows. And I made a devlog about that as well, which you can go and check. But it basically just didn't remove all of the OneDrive and Edge components. And there was nothing wrong with the detection logic in Winhance. It was that the items weren't completely removed. Although users couldn't find them on their system, there was still some of those components baked in to Windows. Where I'm at now is I've still got issues with detecting the installation status of external apps in Winhance. So I won't be able to completely remove the registry detection logic and the fuzzy matching based logic. And doing some more tests, I also found that the WinGet export command, when it works, it does work well because I've got structured data. I've got the exact ID to match versus the packages that I have defined in Winhance. But there's one issue, and I can show you in the logs here. Now, this only happens sometimes, but it happens. So when you launch Winhance, and it does a installation status check via the WinGet export command, sometimes it times out. So you can see right there, the WinGet export timed out after 10 seconds. And I added 3 attempts for it to basically restart the process. Now you can see that after that, the WinGet export did find 72 installed packages. So it worked. But if you look at the timestamps for when it was checking the WinGet availability up until it actually found the packages, that's 15 seconds. That's spent just on the Winhance loading screen, and it kind of looks like it's stalled. So you can think for yourself, if it gets to attempt 3 and it stalls on attempt 3 and you don't even have the status indicators, that means we're going to spend like 30 seconds, 45 seconds to get the installation status. But that's when I found another way. So you might or might not be familiar with a project called WinGet UI by Marty Clement. And I've actually spoken to this developer. He helped me a lot getting started with Winhance. We went back and forth with each other via email. And WinGet UI, his application, is actually one of the applications that inspired me to create my own Windows app. And you'll also find that the Winhance UI looks similar to the WinGet UI. But basically what WinGet UI does is it's a graphical user interface for the package managers. And one of these package managers is WinGet. Now, what Marty also did is he created this project to get the WinGet API from C#. And Winhance is created in C#. So he basically created an example of how to use the WinGet COM APIs from C#.net. And this is a game changer for Winhance when it comes to using WinGet. So he gives some usage instructions here on how to add this to your project. And that's exactly what I did to Winhance. Then if I go to the source files, you'll see that we now have the Windows Package Manager.interop. And most of this stuff is actually from Microsoft themselves. You can see this is copyrighted under the Microsoft Corporation. It was part of the dev home, exactly like he also states here. The code on the project named Windows Package Manager Interop was extracted and modified from dev home. So we can use that in our own applications because it is under the MIT license. So you can use the code, but the code is not Winhance's code. It is from Microsoft, and then Marty just made it easily available to add to your own projects like Winhance, for example. So where does that leave us? Well, let me show you what happens if I now run the latest dev build, like the development build that I'm busy with right now. If I build and run that and show you the logs of how quickly it detects the status installation of the packages that I have installed compared to the WinGet export command, I think you'll also be surprised. Now, it also works a lot better when installing and uninstalling apps via WinGet, because it just uses another way to speak to WinGet using the Windows COM APIs. So before, I was using the command line, the CLI, and it was basically running the commands in a PowerShell window that you couldn't see and then extracting all of the contents from that window and then giving it back to Winhance so it can display it to the user. Now, if I go to the external software, you'll be able to see that it still detects the items as installed. And if I open the logs and I open this latest log and I go to where it detected the installation status, we got right here, we've got checking WinGet availability. It found it, and then it started checking the installation status, and it found all of these items, and there the installation check completed. So that all happened in the span of like 2 to 3 seconds. You can see it started on 04:14 seconds, did all the status checks, and finished at 17 seconds. That is a major improvement when it comes to detecting the installation status of the WinGet installed applications. You can also see if I click the refresh button in the external software section, it's almost instant that it detects the installation status of these items. So I think that is a major improvement, but we're not done with the installation status checks yet, because there's still a bug, or let's call it an incomplete implementation for checking all of the available apps. So you'll see this user created a issue, and keep in mind this is in Winhance release 16. So this only uses the WinGet export command, and it doesn't do any registry-based detection or fuzzy matching logic. So this user says they've got both Firefox and Foxit Reader installed, but it doesn't recognize them as installs. They're both red. Then someone else created the same issue, which is a duplicate. So I just closed it and told them to keep track of it in the main issue here. But they also reported that Firefox is installed, but it shows red as not installed. Other users also reported the same thing. And then this person also said it's with Firefox, Vivaldi, and Foxit Reader. So what's the issue? Why doesn't it work? Well, it would have worked if these items were installed using WinGet or Winhance, because Winhance uses WinGet, because it would then have the WinGet package ID to detect those items as installed. But in this virtual machine here, I installed Vivaldi and Firefox from the web. I went and downloaded the installers. They're here in the downloads files. You'll see there's Vivaldi and Firefox. Now, if I open a terminal here, PowerShell window, and I do WinGet list to list all of the applications that's installed on this computer that WinGet can detect. If we look for Vivaldi and Firefox, you'll see here we've got Mozilla Firefox. So it does detect it as installed. It shows me the name, but the ID is not a WinGet ID. It's basically detecting it via add and remove programs. It's installed to the machine, not just the user. It's for 64-bit systems and then Mozilla Firefox. Now, the same thing is going to happen with Vivaldi. There we've got the Vivaldi display name, but it also detects it via the add remove programs. This one's installed for the user only, 64-bit system, and then the name is Vivaldi. Now, if I were to do another command, WinGet search, let's do Vivaldi, for example, you can see that the Vivaldi browser right here, it is available on WinGet and the Microsoft Store, and those are the IDs. There we've got Vivaldi.Vivaldi. And if we look at the Winhance source code, you can see that we've got the Vivaldi WinGet package ID here. I can also add the Microsoft Store package ID, and I think I will do that. But in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is if these users installed Vivaldi or Firefox or any of the other apps that might have this issue with WinGet, then there wouldn't be any issue. Winhance would detect it because the way that it detects the installation status is it uses our WinGet ID, like brave.brave, for example, or Vivaldi.Vivaldi, and it compares it to what's found on the system, the WinGet IDs that's found on the user system, and then it matches it or it doesn't match it. But when it's not installed via WinGet, then it detects the ID as something else. It detects it via the add and remove programs in Windows. So that leaves us with name matching. We have to match the name property. And that's where most of the false positive installation status that we had before actually came in, because we would have name matching. For example, this was one of the issues we had. You can see here, Microsoft Teams meeting add-in for, I think Microsoft 365 is the full package name, is installed on the system. There was a stage where this package would show that Microsoft Teams is installed on the computer in Winhance, because Winhance matched this Microsoft Teams meeting add-in to the Windows app, Microsoft Teams, and it said, yes, it's installed. We can mark this item as installed. But Microsoft Teams wasn't installed. It was only the add-in. So for the name matching, we have to be very accurate about how we match this, because you'll see if I do a search for Firefox, right? Just look at how many different Firefox versions are available on WinGet. This is where I did the search. If I scroll all the way down, that's all the Firefoxes that you get on WinGet. Well, up until here. I'm not adding every single one of those to Winhance. That's just not possible. And these things are basically the different languages that you get Firefox in, and this doesn't happen with every single app. But what I'm trying to get at is we need a solution that will detect my Mozilla Firefox, whether it uses that ID or whichever ID it uses or whichever language it is, it should detect that Firefox is installed. Now, if we go down on this list, Mozilla Firefox ESR, the extended security release, this one is completely different than the Mozilla Firefox. It's an extended security release. So it has to differentiate between those two. I don't want Winhance to detect the Mozilla Firefox ESR package as the normal Mozilla Firefox. So with all of that being said, if we open the registry editor and we have a look at some of the uninstall keys, if we do the local machine first, you can see that we've got some different entries here, some GUID. So these are things like Microsoft.NET Runtime, Winhance, VMware tools and stuff. And these things should be detected by WinGet themselves. But then we've got the other items like 7-zip, for example. And down here, we've got Mozilla Firefox, which was one of the problematic packages that we couldn't determine the state for. Previously, when I was doing the registry matching, I was using the display name. So it would take Mozilla.Firefox and then x64enus would also be part of it. But I think it just trimmed that part. What I'm thinking of doing now is using this part of the key. So just after the uninstall, the actual key name, because this is a value, this is a string value. But if we use the key name, it might be more reliable, like Mozilla Firefox. You can see this is called Mozilla Maintenance Service. So it shouldn't detect that as a false positive. The same thing with 7-zip, although we don't have an issue with 7-zip, I'm just using it as an example. It also has the exact name of the application in the key where it is installed. If we compare that with the name that we get from WinGet, the WinGet list output, you can see that the name that WinGet gives us is the actual display name of that item. So for 7-zip, it uses the version number as well. It's the display name key, but we've got the name in this part of the key here as well. With all of that said, I want to add back the registry matching logic and the fuzzy matching logic, but I want to make it much more improved. So with that, I'm going to go over and I'm going to start that off with a prompt to Claude. And yesterday I purchased a Claude Max plan, and in my experience, it's been much better than just using the downgraded plan that I had before. So I'm going to type this prompt here, and what I'm going to say is, can you analyze the external app installation status detection flow after we matched items with the WinGet IDs? After that, there should be a registry-based detection and matching sequence for all of the apps that haven't been marked as installed. It should check all 3 uninstall paths in the registry, and by that I mean the HKCU, HKLM, and the WOW6432 node, which is basically just an installation path for 64-bit and 32-bit. But it should check all 3 uninstall paths in the registry and then match that to the name property that we have in the definition. So by that I mean, if we go to browsers definitions in Winhance and we look at Firefox, for example, we've got Firefox right here. So what'll need to happen is, I can't just call it Firefox, it'll have to be Mozilla Firefox, so that it matches what we found in the registry here. It should be the actual display name. So some of these items in Winhance will have to change. The same with Chrome, it'll have to be Google Chrome. It'll have to be the actual display name. So I'll also go through this and ensure that it works properly and that the name properties are the actual names that is available when these apps are installed. But nonetheless, it should match that to the name property that we have in the definitions. I also don't think we should use the display name registry value. We should use the actual key name. For example, for Mozilla Firefox, use this. Now let me just see if I can copy this, and I'm just going to copy the last part. I want it to use the Mozilla Firefox key name and not the display name, which in this case is, and then let's just get that display name as well. Then I also just want to say that I don't know if we still have fuzzy matching logic or if we can remove that, but the installation status detection should be accurate and not provide any false positives or negatives. For example, let's just get that Microsoft Teams meeting add-in. I don't want something like this being detected as Microsoft Teams because it's not Microsoft Teams. So ensure the code is aware of that. Then I'm just going to give it the analyze and respond prompt that I have, and then paste that and send that off. Okay, so it's come up with a plan here. So we've got the detection flow for external apps. Apps with a WinGet package ID is checked via the WinGet COM API, and then apps without a WinGet package ID is checked via the registry. Okay, that's how it was working before. But now it actually needs to be all of the apps that weren't detected as installed with the WinGet check via the COM API has to be checked. So all external apps currently have WinGet package ID defined. The registry fallback path for apps without WinGet ID is essentially dead code for external apps because every definition has a WinGet ID. That's not true. So this finding is not correct because if we look at something like SniffNet, for example, you can see SniffNet has no WinGet package ID. The same with TeleGuard. So that is incorrect. There's also no fallback after WinGet check fails. If WinGet doesn't find an app, it's marked as false, and there's no secondary registry check. Current registry matching uses display name, not key name. So it reads the display name value and matches it against it, not the actual sub key name. No fuzzy matching exists. It's exact string matching using equals. Okay, so that's fine. The problem with Firefox is like the registry key name is Mozilla Firefox. The display name is Mozilla Firefox with the language and the architecture, and the app definition name in Winhance is Mozilla Firefox. So the current code compares the definition name against display name, which will fail because Mozilla Firefox does not equal Mozilla Firefox with the architecture and the language. So the solution is a pragmatic two-phase approach. Add a new optional property, registry key name, to item definition. I don't want to do that. We don't need an additional property because we already have the name property. We just need to fix the name properties. So it'll first check via WinGet, and then for apps not found via WinGet, check the registry names as fallback. So I'm not going to add a registry key name. It's going to have slight duplication if the key name matches the name property. And I can guarantee you that in 99% of cases, the registry key name and the name property is going to be exactly the same. And I don't want the registry key property. Option B is reuse the name property. It's simpler but less flexible, but that's what I want to do. It forces the name to match the registry key exactly. Some apps have friendly names that differ from registry keys. Example, VS Code versus Microsoft Visual Studio Code. It's less explicit, it's harder to understand what's being matched. Then it's got option C, a clean architecture approach to create a dedicated I installation detection strategy with multiple implementations. The WinGet detection strategy, registry key name, I don't think this is needed. It's more complexity for what's just a simple fallback that we want to add. So what I'm going to say at the very top here, it said that all external apps have a WinGet ID. Just going to copy that and give it back to it and tell it this is false. Look at the definitions for SniffNet and TeleGuard, for example, just so it knows about it. And then I'm going to tell it that option B seems better, to just use the name property and not duplicate it with registry key name, because I think in 99% of cases they will be the same. Then it's addressing my concerns. So the key insight is using the exact key name matching and not substring matching. That's right. And the 3 registry paths are already covered. What about removing old code? The get installed programs from registry async method that returns a hash set can be removed if you implement option A, since we'd be using key names instead. I'm just going to copy and paste that and reply to it saying we're using option B, so determine what needs to be done with this method. So I think that's it. I'm just going to copy my edit guidelines prompt, paste that, and then let it implement these changes so that we can test. And I've already installed Vivaldi and Firefox on my main machine here as well. So once we run this, we should be able to test it immediately. If I do WinGet list and we have a look at the apps here, we got Mozilla Firefox and it's detected via add and remove programs. And then we should also have Vivaldi here somewhere. There we have Vivaldi, and we've got add and remove programs. So it's made these code changes in the app status discovery service. So how it works now is we're getting the external app installation status. For phase 1, it uses WinGet, which is our primary package manager, against the installed apps using the WinGet package ID that we have defined. And then we have registry fallback for apps that are not found, and it matches the definition name against the registry key names. For example, Mozilla Firefox matches uninstall / Mozilla Firefox. So let's build and test it and see if it works. Heading over to the external software, we can see that Mozilla Firefox is marked as installed, as well as Vivaldi, Google Chrome as well, and then Thorium is highlighted as well. And I saw Thorium here on this list, so that's correct. Although I thought I uninstalled it, but there might be some remnants left. Well, let me just look through this list to see if I can find anything that looks like a false positive. Everything looks correct, so it looks like it's working. If we look at the logs, I want to be able to see exactly how it detected which app. So we've got the WinGet COM API, and WinGet detected all of these apps. Then it found via the registry, Thorium and Vivaldi. So how did it find Mozilla? Via WinGet. So I must have had Firefox installed, but that's strange because the WinGet list command detects it as via the add and remove programs. But nonetheless, it doesn't matter. It is correct because Firefox is installed, but it says it detected it via WinGet. Nonetheless, if it works, it works. Registry is a fallback. I want WinGet to be the primary detector and then the registry to be the fallback. So if I test the uninstall support, I'm going to try and uninstall Thorium. I don't think it's going to work, but I don't think this is a Winhance issue. This is remnants of Thorium that's left on the system that shouldn't be there. So it correctly marked it as installed because it found it in the registry, but it isn't actually installed. But let's try to uninstall something like Vivaldi. Let's actually uninstall Vivaldi and Firefox, both of them, to test if that works. So it launches the Firefox uninstaller. And some of these uninstallers can't be automated. It requires user input. So they have been uninstalled. So this works. So the only drawback I see is that if we maybe have an incorrect name definition inside of Winhance, and by that I mean this item definition name, if that doesn't match what we have in the registry, then it won't detect as installed. But we'll handle those cases as they pop up, as people report them. I'm going to try and get this as accurate as I can, but at least now if we do get more issues about app installation status detection, we'll know that it's most probably related to the name property that we have defined inside of Winhance here. And then we can just change that to match the registry key subname. And if one of the applications have a weird registry key subname that wouldn't match the name, then we'll create an optional property that we can add to those definitions like the registry key name. But I'm not going to add that to every single item. I'm just going to add that to those that actually need it. So it will just be an optional property, but that'll be in the future if we do actually need something like that. But I think I'm happy with this, especially the fact that checking the installation status has become a lot faster. You can see it's like 5 seconds. If I look at the status check here, that's 35 seconds. If I look at this status installation check here, this all happened inside of 1 second, inside a single second, and it hasn't failed once. It's been working ever since I implemented it, unlike the WinGet export command that I was using to detect the installation status. So that's going to be it for this issue. I'm not going to commit these changes right now in this recording. I'm going to be working on some other stuff as well off of the recording. One of the issues I'm working on is this application crash on startup with this exception code. This has happened to a few people, and it's specifically related to Windows 10 LTAC 2021 or IoT LTAC 2021. But the thing is, I've tested this on my end with the exact same Windows versions as the users that are reporting this. I also provided screenshots here, and Winhance is working on my end. So something else is going on here. I don't just want to make code changes to the startup of Winhance if I don't know exactly where the issue is, if I can't replicate the issue or know what's causing it exactly. So instead of guessing and implementing stuff to try and get it fixed, I want to know exactly why it happens so I can fix the root cause. The other thing I've been working on is Winhance documentation. So this is a local website that I'm viewing now, but once this goes live on the Winhance downloads page, there will be a docs link that you can click, and I've got Winhance documentation for the app as it is now in its current state. And it's got the features here. It's got user guides for the config files, wimutil, auto unattend, all of that. And I'm going to post a video about this on my main channel as well. But those are the things I'm working on at the moment. I want to get a new update out to Winhance sometime next week, but I want to make sure that these bugs are fixed and that there are actually some useful things packaged in the new release. But with all of that being said, thanks so much for watching this video and sticking around. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you've got ideas for me or a better implementation on some of these things that I'm trying out, let me know about that in the comments down below or via a GitHub issue, and I'll be sure to check it out. But that's going to be it for today. I'll see you guys soon.